Whenever I buy something that is more luxury than necessity, I think of a scene from a movie I watched 30 years ago. It's about a man who went from dire poverty to extravagant wealth practically overnight. But he didn't spend his wealth wisely, and in time, his riches were lost nearly as quickly as they were gained. When he got evicted from his house, he comforted himself saying, "I don't care. I'll just live the same way I did before," and declared that he would take only what he needed. Yet, by the time he finished going around picking up thing after thing, his hands were too full to carry away everything he thought he needed. He fell to the ground in tears of despair. He then realized that he could not live without these things. Things started possessing him instead of him owning them. Many times I ask myself, do I own my things, or do they own me? And can I live without them? God has placed a test in the nature of the material things we own, which can easily turn from means to end, and from servant to master. Our attachment to what we own starts at a young age. I see it in my children, or any children who tear up when another child takes their toy away from them, even when they have an abundance of other toys. They still fear sharing. I see it too when they insist on going to the store to buy something. When asked what they want to buy, they often just say something, anything. They want to buy just for the sake of buying. Buying has become the goal or the end in itself, and not the means to achieve the end. But who is behind this? It is the ego. The ego begins its work early in our lives. It takes on a life of its own and continually tells us, I am not satisfied. I want more. And when we take possession of something, we feel a satisfaction that is strong, but superficial and transitory. This fleeting pleasure leads to a chronic addiction. The objects we obtain work their way into the mind, heart, and psyche until we become attached to and defined by them. And aware of how dependent we have become, we reduced ourselves to these worldly possessions: work, wealth, education, physical appearance, and so forth. The ego confuses our being with our possession. I own, therefore I am. And the more we own, the more the ego within us grows and pushes us away from our true essence, the soul that came from God. I will never forget the first time I heard a group of businessmen ask, "How much is that man worth?" How much? What they meant, of course, is how much he owned in cash, real estate, stock, and other assets. They were so fixated on material things that they defined others by what they own. I realized that the obsessive pursuit of material things underlies a collective delusion that these objects will bring us happiness and tranquility. What is the effect of accumulated material wealth on people's happiness? One study methodically argues that psychological attachment to objects has a severe negative impact on physical as well as mental health. I have read similar results in more than 120 studies with a sample of 150,000 subjects from over 40 countries. These studies not only examine how much people desire wealth, but how much they believe it will bring happiness. I'm convinced that the ego fuels this manic greed for more and more. The greed that is responsible for the unequal distribution of resources among people and is a major cause of poverty, destitution, and hunger around the world. I decided to test my own awareness by closely monitoring how I interact with the things I own. Did I define myself by them? Do I fear losing them? Or am I able to transcend and separate them from my being? I was appalled at how attached I was. Every time I bought something new, especially when it was something I didn't really need, I remembered the movie and the strength of the man's attachment. I hope such introspection has made me more aware of the nature of my relationship to my possessions. I strive to redefine my relationship to things, to gain mastery over them rather than the other way around. But in this hope, I could be mistaken. For the ego is relentless. When you cast it from a doorway, it may return to haunt you from a window. And so it is a daily struggle. To own things and to use them to serve humanity is a good deed. God has referred to wealth in the Quran as khair, or good. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "How great is the goodness of wealth when put in the hands of a righteous man." Material objects become evil only when they become our masters and occupy our hearts rather than our hands. Ali ibn Abi Talib defined the word zuhd as not that you own nothing, but that nothing owns you. When material possessions stay in our hands and do not enter our hearts, we can use them, not vice versa. It's the ego that made the earth swallow the greedy Korah, Qarun. It's the ego that destroyed the selfish man of the two gardens. The stories may change, but the ego is always to blame. I wonder what will become of this ego on the deathbed. At that time, every person will realize that he is not the material objects that he identified himself with. Death will strip you of everything that is not you and will expose your true self. At that point, we will realize that what we had been looking for throughout our lives had been with us all along, concealed by the things we had grown attached to. The ego tricks us into a constant state of deprivation, keeping us in a futile pursuit of one thing after another. The ego promises greater satisfaction, but in truth, the ego can never be satisfied. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, shared with us this wisdom. If the son of Adam had a valley full of gold, he would like a second. And if he were given the second, he would desire a third. For nothing will fill his mouth except the dust.